Today I'm actually making one of my favorites, the cinnamon twist. I'm going to do them in a kind of cinnamon sugar coating rather than like a glaze coating, but I think I might do another tray of them with a kind of glazed look. You'll see what I mean when I get into the video. But first I'm going to take the dough colored clay that I mixed and I'm going to go ahead and cut off pieces of it. I generally don't weigh how much I'm cutting off to use, which probably makes my process a little bit longer. I usually just kind of eyeball it. So I'm going to cut off a chunk and just kind of see how that works first. And I've pulled up a reference picture of the donut that I'm trying to create just to kind of help me visualize what the twist looks like. So I'm going to roll out kind of a thin snake like shape and then I'll fold it in the middle and kind of press them together and then twist. And I think that kind of gives the look I want. The center has a little bit of a hole in the middle, which I don't really like. So I'm gonna see if I can try and close that up without distorting the shape of it too much. And that looks okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and move that over to my cake nail and put it on the sandpaper that I have on there. And once I put it on there, I'll just kind of gently push it down. This will flatten out the bottom of the donut as well as give it some texture from the sandpaper. And using my chalk pastels and my dry paintbrush, I'm going to go ahead and brush on some of the chalk colors. I use a lot of oranges, yellows, and a few of the browns. I have a red brown and kind of a darker chocolate brown that I will put just a tiny bit of that on top of the donut, kind of on the high points. To give it the most, I guess, richness, that's the part that baked the most. And these ones, they're going to be tossed in a cinnamon sugar type coating. So you will be able to see the color of the donut underneath a little bit. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time shading them just to give them a nice, good, rich, baked color before I toss them in the cinnamon sugar. So now that I have one made, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. I think I need to ditch these gloves. They're just not really working for me. And again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball this and roll this out. And I'm going to keep working on this and keep trying to get the shape that I need. But occasionally when I'm working with clay, it does take multiple attempts to get the right size and shape that I'm looking for, especially with these donuts because they do need to fit on the tray when they're all done. So I want to make sure I'm not making them too large or too small, and so it will take multiple attempts of having to roll this out and kind of start from the beginning, but eventually I'll get there. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on trying to get the right shape, and then we'll work on some shading, and then I'll just keep doing this process until I have a good amount of cinnamon twists ready to go. All right, so I've got all my cinnamon twists formed and they're baking in the oven right now. I bake my clay at 275 degrees for about 15 minutes, which is what the package recommends. So I just kind of follow their directions. But while they're in there, I'm going to go ahead and prep the sand that I'm going to use for the cinnamon sugar coating when they're all done. So I have some white sand here. It's fine white sand. I'm going to pour some in a glass. And then using my chalk pastels and an X-Acto knife, I'm just going to shave off some of the color. I have a red brown that I'm going to add to it, and then this lighter brown. I'm just going to kind of mix in just a couple different shades of brown and red browns. And we'll mix that up until I have a good cinnamon sugar appearance. So my cinnamon twists are out of the oven now and they're ready to be coated. So I'm going to go ahead and put down a little bit of liquid polymer clay and some clay softener. And I'm going to mix that in until I have a nice thin texture. I don't want it to be too thick. I want it to coat the cinnamon twists without caking them. So I'm going to go ahead and roll these in here and then drop them into the sand. And we'll toss them around in the cup until they're all done. And then I'll bake these one more time for the same amount of time, 15 minutes at 275 degrees. And then they will be ready to go in the case. And here's the final cinnamon twists. I don't have a full tray of these, so I probably will make more later because I do like how they turned out. They look really nice and I like the texture of them, and that sand just worked awesome. I did end up making a second batch of them. The first ones you saw me making and tossing in the sand, I mentioned that I didn't want them to be too cakey, but I didn't really take any precautions to prevent that other than thinning the liquid polymer clay. And so they did end up being more caked on than I wanted. And so the second round that I made, I tossed them in the liquid polymer clay and then I let them sit just for like a couple seconds or, 10, 50 seconds on my acrylic sheet. And that allowed some of the liquid polymer clay to run off and not cake up in the twist part of it. And so then when I tossed it in the sand, they got a much more even coating and it allowed you to still see the form of the donut underneath versus the first round, which was a little bit cakier and harder to, I feel like they lost their twist look a little bit. So this is the final one. These are going to go in the case. If you're enjoying these donut videos, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because I have more to come. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.